Have you ever felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or stuck wasting time in admin instead of growing, leveraging, and scaling your business? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate, the podcast that's all about handing off what you don't need to do so you can focus on what you do best. So here's your host, Bonnie Schutz.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Delegate to Elevate. Get done. I'm your host, Bonnie Schutz, and today I have a guest that is just the shit. I'm just going to have to say it. He's just the shit. He knows his stuff, and this is going to be a total value add episode for you today. Please meet Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. I'm going to read you a little bio about Chris so you'll know why I brought him on the show today. He's going to have some golden nuggets for us, I'm sure. So please meet Chris Schwalbach. He's a serial entrepreneur and finance professional who founded AVL Growth Partners in 2009, building it into a leading fractional finance, accounting, and HR firm that supported over 1,000 high-growth companies. After years as a CEO, Chris advises early-stage growth companies as a board director and strategic partner. With over 20 years of experience as a CFO and entrepreneur, he helps leaders define strategy, raise and deploy capital, and build stronger teams, demonstrating that scaling requires focus, delegation, and conscious leadership. A Dean Scholar at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business, Chris also holds dual degrees in accounting and finance from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Go Wisconsin! I was born here. When he's not working with founders and their teams, you'll find him outside in colorful Colorado, where we live, with his wife and kids making the most of the mountains, trails, and sunshine. That's beautiful.
There you go. Thanks. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yes. Great. So we had a little chit chat before the call, and Chris comes with, like I said, massive golden nuggets for us today. He's got a few tips and tricks that he's thought about beforehand. So I'd like you to just take it off, Chris. Tell us a little more about how you got to where you are, and let's talk about some of those ideas you have that would be so helpful to this audience.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we provide, fractional services. So like what we're trying to, part of our, program is trying to get executives that we're working with to say, you should, delegate this to us, right? This is, let us be part of your team and get it off your plate. And it's so, one of the things that we use a lot is, we use the phrase zone of genius, like,
Yep.
This is not your zone of genius. And certainly we have a lot of like clients that say, I hate numbers and I want to get as far away from this as possible. And those tend to be very easy, right? It's like,
Right.
Okay, this is like you viscerally hate the accounting side or the finance side. Those are easier to convince. The ones that tend to be a little harder are the ones that say, I can do this. I can do this. And I know how to do it. And it's like, so whether we argue with them, whether they can do it or not is not like we say, it's not even the point. We just kind of say, but should you be doing it?
Yes.
Right. Should you be doing this? And like, is that where your time is best spent? And certainly in the entrepreneurial journey, it's like, yeah, there are things like, yeah, I have to do this right now. I don't have another check to write, or I can't bring anyone else to do this, right? And so there is a journey around where do you create leverage first, right? And what's that path? And different companies are different as to what's the right thing to do when. So, but I think when we start to have that can versus should discussion with our clients, it really starts to be okay, because we kind of say, but what are you, if you had 10 more hours of founder selling time, a month, or 20 hours a month to do that rather than doing this, does that put your company in a better position? And they're like, yes. And, but then then obviously we get to kind of like, well, what does this add up to? And is it the right timing?
Yeah.
When I advise companies, one of the things I do a lot is say, who are your next 3 hires? Let's always keep that in front of us to say, what are the next 3 positions you need to leverage in this organization, and just keeping that on their horizon,
Sure.
even if it's not today, because it invokes a discussion around, well, why are these the next 3? Like, tell me why you picked this one as number 1 and this one as number 2. And it really starts to help, in a way, coalesce the plan and
Sure.
coalesce the financial model too, because it's like, well, if this is if this is the first hire of those 3, then what do we believe to be true? Like, why is that the first one? Well, if this is the first hire, that will enable me to do this, this, and this. Okay, so then where do we need to get to as a company between now and then to make that decision? Well, I need to get to here so I can feel comfortable that we can afford it, or kind of like I need to get to here. That shows me that the company's on the right trajectory. So what I try to do is like lay that out and say,
Yeah.
okay, like, and obviously we're not aiming for 100% comfort, because you never get that. But it's like, but it's a really good part of the discussion, like, and where do you first create leverage? And so I look back at kind of my journey when I was at the early stage, and it's like, my first person was kind of like an exec admin. That was my
Sure.
first person. And I'm like, I don't even know how many hours are here. I don't know what it is, but here's the 5 things that would definitely help me. And it was like, that was the game changer for me. Like, it was like that, having the exec admin on my team, starting to do billing, starting to do interviews, starting to do AR, doing some, various roles, which just enabled me to do other things. And I remember how, it was a long time ago, but I remember how painful that was to kind of say, I'm absorbing this cost.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, I can't afford not to do it as well.
Amen.
Right? Yeah. So,
yeah.
So that's part of it. And it's a fun part of our journey to have those good discussions with CEOs and kind of think about that, because I've been in that seat as well.
That's great, though. I love that you kind of turn it back on them. And why do you want this person? And then maybe help them rethink if that in your experience, that's not always a wise decision in their place, wherever they happen to be in their entrepreneurial journey. I do love the idea of an EA, of course, because that's my background. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you that most people that I ask on as guests on the podcast here, what's the first thing you delegate or you've outsourced? And they all say bookkeeping.
Yes.
So you nailed that at the beginning there. A lot of people don't like to be in their books or their finances.
Yeah, and it's actually, like, without sharing the full entrepreneurial journey or where it came from, but it's like, one of the things I kind of really liked about accounting is it never stops. Like, you can run a company, but you can't stop accounting. You can't, like, you have to pay the bills, you have to run the payrolls, you have to submit tax returns at some point, right? So there is a you can ignore it for a while, but it will come, if you ignore it,
it'll haunt you. We're in October recording this, so kind of makes me feel that way. It'll kind of haunt you every night. Yes. As you go to sleep.
It'll come back. It'll come back in spades. So you can ignore it for a while, but it'll rear its ugly head at some point. So anyway, it's always, I like the, kind of that security of that piece of it, because there is an ongoing drumbeat of accounting and finance that has to happen. But one of the things that, when we first talked, that I was, trying to think about with respect to our clients, and kind of like, when do they work? When do our client relationships really work? And when do they not work? And, what's interesting to me is, like, we are the same firm, we are the same company that's going into clients, and some clients, there's a strong connection, and sometimes there's just not, and it's not an effective relationship. And so certainly there's people dynamics in there and all those kind of things, but what we tried to bring it back to is say, what are the key indicators of success, in delegating? Because even, I think, if you go into, let's the EOS methodology, even the book Traction, the chapter 1, the title is Letting Go of the Mind, right? That is how to let other people start doing the work, right? So they hit it right from page 1. And I think, one of the I think that can be from our lens,
Mm-hmm.
what we see is like, is when there is a CEO that typically who we're working for, is that they're ready to receive help. They're ready to receive a partnership, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this morning, which is like sometimes it's similar to like when this metaphor of like hiring an intern.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hire an intern, and you just like, I don't know what work to give them. I don't know what they're capable of doing. So the internship doesn't actually create a lot of value for the intern.
Sure.
But then there's someone that thinks about like, hey, how am I going to receive this intern, and how are we going to really kind of like put things out in front of them, and there's thought around it, and potentially that's kind of what I mean by receiving, in the
I like
sense of
that.
like,
Yeah.
we're ready to partner. We're all in. And so I think, and so some of this, what we've done internally is we kind of say, um, when we have a new client, we say, we have a methodology. This is what we found is the best practice to get the most value out of the relationship. And
Right.
so one of those things, and this is all about helping receiving. So we're saying a key indicator of success for us is when we have a standing weekly sync. That can be
Yes.
asynchronous or it can be synchronous, but I think
Sure.
it's just like, but if it's, as soon as that weekly sync starts to be ignored, the
Hmm.
yellow flags start flying,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's a really great like indicator, right, of what's going on.
Right.
So, and I think that that fits kind of EOS methodology
Sure.
as well, right, and all that kind of stuff, or whether
Mm-hmm.
it's scaling up, but it's just like that cadence. So I think to me, if I would go into a new client and relationship and say, the expectation we would have is that you would want to follow our methodology, which includes a weekly sync.
Yeah.
And if someone's like, wow, that's way too much, I can't, like, I couldn't possibly, right? Then you say, okay, then we already are starting off in a not great place. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where we try to re-steer the conversation, saying, what we've found is that when that weekly meeting doesn't happen, then it's a leading indicator of the whole thing kind of starting to degrade in
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just kind of like, you know, that's one of the leading indicators. And I'd say then it's like, then we get into like expectation setting. It's like, what is on the docket? What's on the
Yeah.
horizon? And
What's the
so
goal? Mm-hmm.
what is the goal? And so I think keeping that front and center is kind of like one of the things we bring together. So the methodology we use at AVL, we call it the
Mm-hmm.
mindful growth methodology. And then it has a number of pieces and parts to it. But
Yeah.
this is one of them. It's like, how are we staying in front of you in terms of like, what did we say? What did we do? And what's the gap between what we said we were going to do and what we did? And like,
Mm.
and then it's like, what's the value equation in there? And then, we have another piece of this is like every 90 days, we're kind of saying that every 90 days, we're taking like we call it either a step back or, some people call it a quarterly business review, but it's like,
Yeah.
how are we serving you? How is the relationship? How is the connection? What do we need to do?
Yes.
Are we pointing in the right direction? So it's a moment where we kind of say, we're going to stop talking, if you have a client you're serving or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like, we're going to stop talking about the things in the business, but what we're going to talk about is like, how is
How's
the
this vibing?
relationship? Yeah. How
Yeah.
is this vibing? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think one of the key things that I think in this receiving that happens, and this is where I really want to go
Yeah.
like a lot with our clients, is I think there is for a lot of different types of CEOs, it varies, but it's like there's a inherent difference in belief that an employee of the company is treated in a different way than an outside partner,
Ooh.
right?
Okay.
And so it's like, well, an employee can tell what to do. An employee is on call
Mm.
24/7, right? And
Right.
so like, but how do I work with a partner? How do I work with a fractional accountant or a fractional
Yeah.
CFO?
Exactly.
What are the rules of engagement? Which often can lead to, well, I can't possibly trust them to be part of our team because they're not really internal.
Yeah.
And I can't, I can't possibly invite them into this level of meeting or give them this level of responsibility. And I think that's kind of where, I want to kind of, in this delegate and elevate, is to say that where is this belief coming from?
Yeah.
Like, how do we build as bosses, in a sense, how do we build a newer understanding of how we can work with partners and not just have partners be vendors, right? And so, I think that's, and maybe there can be a difference. Like, there can be vendors that are treated like vendors, but if there's a partnership that's really going to elevate the organization, then how do we establish the expectations of partnership?
Yeah.
And I think that, and then and so we have a number of clients where we would say the team that we're working with don't even know we're partners or we're fractional. They just think that we're so embedded in the team that we are just part of the team. And sometimes it really, really works well. But I think it's really a big part of the function is whether that the executive team is willing to receive us in as one of the team, right?
Oh, that's so important. So important.
How do we enable that? How do we enable this receiving? And I think that's where I think methodology helps.
Okay.
Setting expectations up front help. Talking about these beliefs that they might have help, right?
Sure.
And so, like, I think the thing I talk about a lot now is, people are talking about the future of work and like, what does this really mean now? And I think that I like to start off just by telling CEOs, like, I think about it as like the way we build companies now for growth. And I don't think there's a lot of argument here, but you have internal employees and you have partners and you have agentic AI that are taking certain roles too, right? And so the future companies are going to say, who's doing what role and what is the right org structure for this organization?
Yeah.
And so, in a medical device company, you have a huge regulatory issue. Really, like, you have to get through some very big regulatory hurdles. The CEO's got to make a decision. Like, is that an internal? Do we need regulatory inside our company as an employee, or do we partner with that and have a regulatory consultant be the right answer for our company, and why? And so, how do we want to solve this? And we might want to bring more engineers in to develop the product and have engineering be our core competency, but not have regulatory be our core competency. Then we're gonna partner on that. And then, again, I don't need to get into agentic AI because that just opens a whole can of worms, right? But it's like, I think it's just like, but if you're going to get regulatory done well, that regulatory consultant has to be so intimately connected with what's going on in the business to do a good job as a regulatory consultant. If you treat that regulatory consultant as a vendor, there's going to be lost time, lost
They're going to act
effort,
like a vendor.
lost
They're
energy.
not going to be as connected.
And they're going to miss some of the subtle things that need to be part of what they do for the company because they're not received in.
Right.
And so I think that's the challenge for leaders is like, how do we trust and verify? How do we limit this, kind of like eliminate this belief that they're not capable of owning the thing that they're going to own? And if they're not holding up to the standard, just like an internal employee, how are you going to address it? You're going to say you're not keeping up, right? So, and I think we can do that.
Oh yeah.
So, but I think that's why I like the future of work kind of element of this a ton. Yeah.
That's perfect. No, I love all the introspective kind of work you do with people. That's good because I've never really thought a whole lot about sharing that with people because it just comes naturally. I'm very receptive to. I receive well any help that I can get in my business, and I know that a lot of people that we support in mine, also are very good receivers. But there are those anomalies that don't receive well and don't integrate us into their team to feel like we're really part of the team.
Right.
Because I mean, and it always makes me think back to my corporate days as an EA to CEOs. You know, if I knew a little bit more about their vision and felt like I was included at the boardroom table with them, kind of imagery, then I gave more, and I felt like I wanted to, because I had the servant nature, but then I wanted to give more, and I think that applies for service providers too. And I don't know if people, like you said, it's the future of work. You got to open your mind a bit more to it. But yeah, I don't think people always really think of it that way
And
on their own.
that's why we're saying is like, but you would also say an employee of that same company that the vision is shared with them,
Mm-hmm.
they also feel more connected,
Yeah.
and they feel like they're going to work more. So
Yep.
the equation, the employee equation, is the same as the partner equation,
It
right?
is.
And like that's kind of what's funny. So if we kind of have in terms of the CEO that's hiring to delegate, if we set clear expectations and we kind of say, I'm going to let you through this door, but coming through this door comes with expectations of
Yeah.
performance, right? And
Yeah.
I'm going to put you in the same bucket of of having responsibilities like an employee.
KPIs, whatever it takes. Yeah. You are
KPIs,
the
whatever it
same.
takes. And so
Yeah.
if you have a quarterly objectives, and you're giving quarterly objectives to your employees, but you're not giving them to your partners, then it's like, well, why wouldn't you give them to your partners?
Yeah. There's going to be
And
a little
so
broken line
what
there.
things are
Yeah.
the partners going to accomplish? What rocks are they going to get accomplished in the quarter? How are the partnered rocks rolling up just like the employees rocks?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of where I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity
Oh,
in,
for sure.
that's not even going into the value of fractional or anything
Yeah.
like that, but it's just kind of saying like, how do we engage these partners, because there's so much power there, and all of that ties to delegation, right? Or like kind of is
Does
another
outsourcing.
theme,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I just I call it more like leverage. Like, where are you
Sure.
creating? When I talked about those first three hires,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, where in your business model are you going to gain leverage?
Yeah.
Where's and how do you continue to to find the points of leverage,
Yeah.
in your business, and working harder is not a strategy.
No. Smarter as they, harder,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
smarter, not harder, as they always say. How
Yeah.
do you help somebody find or identify those three roles? Like, are there certain questions that you have for them? Like, where is all your time being spent that you don't, that you just like, you come out all stressed because you're spending it there? How do you get them to come to those first three hires or
I mean, there's certainly
engagements?
like, yeah, there's certainly like I think you can use this 2x2 matrix, right? Because it's like,
Mhm.
what are all the things you're doing? And there's like, in the top right quadrant, it's like, here's the things I'm doing that are absolutely my zone of genius. I get
Yeah.
energy from doing them, and I'm really good at them,
Yeah.
right? Then there's a series of things that says I'm good at them. Like, one of the quadrants says I'm good at it, like I'm really good at it, but I just don't like it,
Yeah.
right?
We definitely have those.
And then there's a quote the quadrant that says I really like doing this, but I'm not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a quadrant. So
Yep.
I enjoy it, but I'm not very good at it. And then there's the fourth quadrant, which is I hate doing this,
Get the hell
and
off my
I'm not
plate.
good, at it,
Yeah.
right? So
Is that the
so
Eisenhower matrix? Is that the same thing?
well, that's the Eisenhower. I think is like urgent and important, right?
Yeah.
So like
A little different.
it's similar to that, but
Okay.
but I think it's I think we look at that, and then you just kind of say, well, where can we find leverage, and how do we start removing things off your plate? And again, we
Yeah.
have to look at critical, like what's critical, and
Yep.
what are the core competencies that we're going to build in house, right? So
Yeah.
who do we want to be as an organization? And so I work with a lot of companies. It's just like, to me, a lot of the very, very core, for a company is like, you got to know your product, you got to build a product, and it's like, who's your expert inside your organization that knows the product, and then someone's got to know the customer in the market, right? It's like who can connect with the customer, who's kind of like connecting the product to the customer, right?
Yeah. Right.
In that market. And I think so where that shows up a lot of times is like you got, engineers or software engineers, and you got salespeople and potentially marketing people that are just like kind of that core. I mean,
sure,
there can be and then, marketing is surrounded by another slew of other support people that
social
can
media,
be,
all the good stuff.
yeah. But, like where is that in your organization, right?
Yeah.
And how do you want
Is
to
it a
think about it?
financial goal that you're trying to reach, or is it a like a product launch or service launch? That may help you determine who you're going to hire, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when.
So they so that so I look at that just, and then I think it's like a little bit of a financial piece, which is like, well,
Sure.
what is the, if you're spending 10 hours on bookkeeping and running payroll, right? But you're also spending 10 hours on something complex that's a very high dollar, thing. It's like, well, the first step we might be able to do in our organization is get the admin and the bookkeeping taken care of, because we don't have to be at a level, or it doesn't really change our cash burn in a tremendously massive way, right? And so we just kind of say, well, where are we going to, again, it's just like, this is biggest bang for the buck, right?
Yeah,
Kind of
exactly.
analysis, right?
Quick as ROI.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of really it. But it's like, I've got a company I advise, and the CEO, or one of the founders, is like, he's actually really good at accounting. He's really good at doing this. And he's like, I hated doing it. I hate doing the bills. I hate doing the AR piece. But he's like, but I'm actually very competent at it. It doesn't take a lot of my time. I can't wait till I don't have to do it. But it's not their first thing that they want to go tackle, right?
Yep.
There's other critical pieces that they want to go address. And I think it's really kind of a fun discussion, even though it's like,
gotta be.
Even though bookkeeping is often the first one for them, he's just like, it's not for me. Like I can keep doing this. And it actually, in a subtle way, it actually gives him comfort to know where the numbers are, without having to ask somebody. So he's like, I'm okay staying close to this for longer, but what I really need is someone over here, right? So that's kind of,
I kind of like that. Staying close to it is not a bad thing, but it's not doing it. It's staying close to it, and I like that. I'm gonna use that. You can stay close to this, but you don't need to be in the day-to-day of it. Stay close, be aware of your numbers. In this case,
well, I think that's kind of what you're saying. That's exactly what we're saying, is like the system and the expectations. So to me, it's so hard to convey, but it's like, how do you help a CEO feel supported, right? If you're feeling supported, what does that look like? And I think, one of the things that looks like is like communication, right? And it's like, when in our team, like if an accountant's doing their job and they're doing amazing accounting and they're doing financial reporting and it's getting done on time and accurately, but the CEO is sitting out there saying, I don't know what's happening in accounting. I don't know if the reporting is getting done. I don't know. Meanwhile, the accountant is saying, well, I'm doing an amazing job. That may be true, but if the CEO doesn't know where you're at, their discomfort level increases. So that's why you have to say, how are we communicating? When are we communicating, so that you're providing the comfort level that you are doing the things that you needed to do.
Your
So
CY and your A, is that what they say?
I mean, but
a little bit
of
that.
But I think that's why we're saying a lot of the CEOs we work with haven't established those. What are their systems to do that when there's outside partners? They've learned how to do it with employees, because they basically call the employee and say, where are you? What's going on? Right. But as a partner, that's a foreign territory for them. So they don't know how to do that with partners in the same way they do it with employees.
Then there's
And
that
so
gray
that's where
area
I think,
about 1099s and contractors. Yeah. You can't tell them how to do it, but they just have to. But yeah, that doesn't have to break down your communication with them. I mean, yeah, you can't say you must turn page A and do 1, 2, 3. You can't say it that way. But as long as they're delivering on what they say they're going to do and communicating, and I talk a lot about over communicating in this remote world, then I think you'll have a successful partnership for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's also when you have cadence also does something really well, which is like you're not necessarily updating them every day and every single thing because it's like it's too much. It's too it's like how do we create a cadence that it's like a consistent beating drum of information and it becomes reliable and becomes trusted, right?
And available when the CEO has time and energy to look at it. If they need to be where they need to be. But that's amazing. Chris, I think this is so valuable. And I normally toward the end of chatting with somebody, ask them for like 2 of their biggest tips and tricks about building someone's delegation muscles. And I think we pretty much already hit them. But if you can think of anything else to share with the audience to make them feel good about taking a risk and taking a chance about, thinking introspectively about, I love the whole receiving thing. Like, I think I'm going to take that as a golden nugget myself. Am I ready to receive what this provider or this employee could give me? So that's a good one. Is there anything that we might have missed to wrap up our chat today?
I think this is. I actually learned this next 3 hires thing. To me it was a question that when I was helping a company raise this Series A round for some capital. Capitalist, and one of the things happened more than once, but the venture capitalist said, "Who are your next 3 hires? What are your next 3 hires and why?
Okay,
and then who is the absolute perfect person to be in that role? If you had a magic wand, who would you want in that role? What is it? What do they look like? What do they smell like?" And it's like, and I'm like, well, it would be this person, but we'll never get that person. He's like, I don't care about whether you can get them. I want to know who is the perfect person because it's an answer. It's an answer to the potential investor to say, how are you thinking about it? And so whether you have an investor or not, even if you have a partner, what I think would be, on a quarterly basis is to say with that partner is who are our next 3 hires, why, and who is the absolute perfect person for this.
I like
and
that.
so that makes you go to LinkedIn and find a profile of someone that you know, and you're like, well, why is this the perfect person? Because they have this and this and this. And what that allows is a really great discussion amongst your partners or amongst your team, right? Because it's like, well, I didn't think you were thinking that way. I'm like, well, how are you thinking about it? Right.
How can we meet in the middle if I'm wrong?
Well, yeah, it just helps set it's a good way to kind of like cross check on strategy by really identifying the people, and then you're like, well, why do you think that's the second hire? It's because of this metric, this metric, this metric, but this is how I'm thinking about it. It's like, oh, you think you're spending that much time doing that right now? I am spending that much time. Oh crap, we got to get you out of doing that. So that is, I think this maybe should be the first hire. I think that's a really good way to
have a great discussion to have. With your trusted partner or whomever. That's great. That's awesome.
And that's why I think, and so I think the second one is like, how are you enabling? So I think, again, the partner and asking yourself these questions, which would be like, are you allowing a vendor to be a partner? Are you giving them rocks? Are you inviting them to all the meetings? You know what I mean? And then how do you hold them? How do you have that same level of accountability for them as if they're a member of your team? And I think if you can think about how you do that as a leader, then I think you're going to get a tremendous amount of power out of kind of these partner relationships. If they're true partners and they can show up as true partners, you're going to find out, right? But if you have your own set of expectations of how you're going to operate, then I think the partners will step up, and you will be surprised at the value equation you get from that delegating to a partner. And I'm like, that's why I say it's like leveraging, like
leveraging, delegating, however you want to say it. That's perfect. No, that is some great advice. Thank you so much for myself and for my audience, because that gives you a lot those things that make you say, I'm really thinking, oh, damn, I
Good.
didn't really think about that, did I? That's good to just pass it across to some, trusted partner. And I love that. So, thanks again for being here today.
You
I
bet.
think this is great. And I love all these golden nuggets you've shared with my audience today. And everybody, I'd love to invite you to drop a comment or two underneath the video or the audio that you listen to, and I'll have him back if you have another subject that you want to talk about. Go a little
Good.
deeper. Let's dive deeper with Schwally. We'll come up with some catchy name. I don't know. But thanks again for being here today. I really, really appreciate you for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule, I am sure. But that makes me feel great that you did that for me. So thank you so much. I have some
You bet,
awesome
Bonnie.
people in my
You bet.
circle. You have a great day. Everybody take care, delegate to elevate, and get your done. Subscribe, like, and share us with your colleagues. And we'll see you on the next round. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Bye.
So that's it for today's episode of Delegate to Elevate. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Bonnie herself. Be sure to head on over to delegatetoelevatepodcast.com. That's with the number 2. And pick up a free copy of Bonnie's gift and join us on the next episode.